Thanks for doing this, Carol.
No problem.
It's sometimes intimidating for people. They think, oh, we're going to come out and do this. But I don't even know what I'm doing, and so don't worry about it.
Well, I just want to say that it is intimidating, but mostly I don't know how much information I can add to whatever you've already gathered.
To me, it's interesting that I knew you because you were Joyce's friend.
Yes.
And then in talking to all these people, I find out you were working at State College
Right.
and did things for Earl. And I thought, well, isn't it weird how it just goes
I know.
full circle?
Uh-huh.
And I knew Harriet from all the
Right.
old ACC days.
Right.
And you know her from State College days.
Right. Before she became involved, really.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
she was just recently hired when I met her.
Really?
She came on as a counselor for EOP.
Okay.
And in fact, I think she replaced Satsuki.
What year was that, do you think?
I would say early to mid 70s.
Wow. And, well, see, Harriet was involved. Well, maybe that timing is right because I remember she was a student.
At Sac State.
Yeah, going for her master's, right?
Mhm.
So, was that before then, do you think?
Yeah,
Okay.
it was because she was already working as a social worker for the county, I think, when she came on board
Okay.
at EOP as a counselor.
Yeah, yeah,
So that's where she got into education.
yeah, yeah. When did you start working at Sac State?
Probably 1969.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I worked for about 3 years, and then I went half-time for 3 years. And that's when I got involved with EOP, and that's how I got involved with Earl, just because of the location of EOP.
Oh.
Earl
What year
was
did
for
you say
some
that
reason
was?
working in the temporaries, but he was a social work faculty.
Okay, okay. And I remember he used to talk about was there an African American social worker there?
Yeah. There?
Yeah.
There was one in counseling, and I don't know if that's who he was talking about. She was a social worker, but she wasn't from campus. She came from
Oh.
county also. I think she did like adoptions or something.
Oh, yeah. No, I
And I
somewhere
know.
in the back of my
She
mind.
was African American.
Oh, yeah, I remember an African American
Oh.
man. But maybe that's something
There was somebody that Earl worked with when he worked in the temporaries where his office was. There was an African American man who was working for the Career Center. But at the time, I think he was helping out with the Veterans Office or something.
Okay.
And they kind of shared an office.
Okay, okay. Well, I thought maybe I can ask you how it was sharing an office with Earl.
It was fine. We were people. I only worked half-time, so I kind of floated around, but I was still part of Student Affairs. And Student Affairs had this kind of a barrack-like temporary building, and part of it was divided into small offices. And I had the outer office, and then Earl had a small office, no door, but it was, had full walls. And so there were about 3 of those small offices, and I was in the larger part because I was with disabled students and off-campus housing. And I was kind of my own boss because we were way out in the boondocks. So nobody ever came. Just the students came, which was fine.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then Earl, and I can't remember if he was there, if that was his office as a faculty member, or if he was working on another project and had an office there. He wasn't there all the time because he was on faculty. So he must have been teaching classes and then using that.
I got a copy of this last issue of this Asian Community Services News. It's called the final edition, and it says September 1973. Do you remember Earl ever sitting there reading this or anything?
Well, he was always reading stuff, but I didn't know what he was reading. But who put this out?
That Asian Community Services, which was like, June Otto and
okay.
Randy and Earl, my sister,
Okay. Yeah, no, I don't remember ever seeing anything like this.
Yeah. And now that I see this, I could never get straight in my mind. Where was ACS? Because I knew they were the ones that were picketing Fantasia and doing things
that
like
was
that.
June O'Toole when
And
she
those
was very active. Yeah.
And then I thought, well, where did the ACC? But now JCC.
Yeah.
But now when I read this, it all becomes clear in my mind.
I see some seniors, but
Yeah,
do you see?
yeah. I
There's
see
a lot of
people I
young
knew.
people.
Yeah,
Oh, you
there's a
do?
lot of young people too. Yeah.
No, I've never seen this, but Earl, I'm sure he was
must
part
have,
of it.
Yeah, he was, and he probably wrote some of it. And somebody, they have it in
into Japanese.
Well, it could be either Chinese, Japanese. It's kanji, so they could both read it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I thought it was interesting.
And that's September of '73.
This is their last issue. That's when they quit doing it because they thought, well, see, here are these older Issei people too. We all were kind of young in those days.
I didn't really know, because I'm not from Sacramento, I was from Placer.
Yeah.
And we always lived outside of town.
Yeah.
Although I had a lot of friends and family living right in
Yeah.
town, but I didn't really know the community that well, because I was more close to the Placer community.
Oh, yeah. Well, now when I looked at this thing, there's Mrs. Moria. She's really, I think Margaret described her as kind of like the spokesperson, so that she could speak up and everything. So it was fun.
These were all,
see,
they
those
look
are
like
those.
Issei.
Remember those pictures?
Yeah.
The slant-eyed,
This is Fantasia.
Fantasia.
My kids used to golf there. It's a miniature golf course.
Okay.
But I never went with them, and they never said anything.
Well, they probably didn't, think anything of it.
Well,
Yeah.
Well, my kids went to, we lived in Willarga, so there was a lot of diversity, but not a lot of Asians.
Yeah.
More blacks and Hispanics, so people from the base.
Yeah. What was also interesting to me, where it says staff? Under photos, it says Marsha Lee. That's Will Lee's niece. Marsha, yeah.
Really? Oh, Marsha. Betty used to talk about, she used to talk about all her family, so.
Yeah,
I
Marsha's
used
the
to
one that
remember
married some
Marsha.
millionaire from Hong Kong or
Yeah,
something.
right, yeah.
That's why I thought, wow, before Marsha did those things, I guess she used to do these, So it was interesting. But I just thought, I wonder if Earl used to read this in that office.
He might have, because he did have an office. Nobody, all of us that were in the temporaries like that, we didn't really have somebody supervising us. We were all our own.
That was kind of nice.
It was nice for me because
Yeah.
I was supposed to report to the residence hall director, but I never saw him.
Wow.
So, because we're way out in the temporaries, and it's a long walk from the front of the campus. But I was part of student affairs, so if I needed anything, then I had to walk to the front of campus or call them on the phone. But it was nice because I was my own boss.
Yeah. Do you know that?
But that's why I was able to help, Earl. 'Cause I couldn't do the work during my office hours, but then I would stay after work when he had something that he needed done.
And he felt free to ask you
Yeah,
to
he
help
did.
him
And
type
of course
these
I
things?
did because I went to a couple meetings. By then, I guess I had met Harriet, and so I got interested, and so I went to a couple meetings at Mrs. Tambara's house, I think, by Southland Park. Because I remember, I think we were down in the basement or something, but I remember I had Ben drive me because I didn't know the area and I didn't want to be there at night looking around for the address.
Yeah.
So he went, but it was just a small, I think like an organizing meeting, the very beginnings of it.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
Well, Earl went with my sister.
I didn't know
And
that.
so he was Uncle Earl to my kids,
Yeah, I really liked him. We just, I didn't know him until we worked in the same office or shared offices in the same building, but I really liked him. And then I got to know Wayne and them more because there was an Asian student and faculty group on campus that was really active. So it included students and faculty
That was
and
Wayne
staff.
Maeda. Wayne Maeda. Yeah.
So I got to know him through the faculty and staff get-togethers. And Earl, I don't think Earl really participated that much in that, but I got to know him just simply because we were in the same area.
Yeah.
But he would ask me to type something, and then the next day, if I did a good job, he'd bring me something from Osaka.
Oh, that was
And
nice.
he'd say thank you.
Oh, that was nice.
So I said, well, that's pretty good, because that was a treat for us.
Oh, yeah. Then after that, did you work for Harriet?
I went to work full-time for EOP. I was working part-time for EOP and for the residence halls and the disabled students. I was just kind of working part-time for all of those student affairs. They were like little branches of student affairs that didn't really, at that time, have big representation.
Yeah.
So I was able to just handle all those. But then when I went back to work full-time, then they asked me to go to EOP. So that's where I stayed till I retired.
Oh.
Pretty much.
And all this was this before you went to Alabama?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But then when did you, because you and Ben used to help at Bingo, that was after you came back from Alabama?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I did before, because I used to go right from campus and change clothes at the Bingo Hall.
Yeah.
And work. But Ben didn't start until after he retired.
Oh, see, it just keeps going, and I didn't really know you were
So that
there,
was
and he
after 90, because we came back in 94.
Oh.
And so he started then.
Yeah.
But I started from the very beginning, because I remember going to those meetings when they were telling us how to do bingo, and none of it made sense to me.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if I could do this. I never heard of this kind of business.
I know it. I think it was foreign to all of us, Yeah. And then so you and Ben did bingo until we quit bingo.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Did you go to that reunion we had a couple of years ago?
I
the
did,
bingo reunion?
at the Greenhaven Terrace?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. That was so nice.
Yeah. I kind of, in my little purse notebook, I wrote the names of people, I'd run into them, and then they'd say they never went. They didn't know about it. I says, I'm going to write your name down. I have a little list of people
I don't know how I knew about it. I think from the ACC newsletter or something.
Yeah, but some people just didn't know because it was really fast and it happened, and the ones who
I
went
thought it was
had
pretty
a good
well
time.
attended, considering.
Yeah. So, well, when we were young, did we think, okay, 50 years down the line, ACC is going to be like, did you have any ideas like that?
I had no idea, because the small group that I met initially, it was more women. The social workers and community activists were women, like your sister and June Oto and Donna Alfung, and it was all women mostly. Earl was in there someplace, and I know Chewy and them were in there, but I thought, good for them. Women, when they have a task, they do it, and they did.
Yeah.
And I just always think that if it wasn't for that core group, I don't think it would have happened. It might have taken longer, but like Harriet and them, they were really.
That was a special generation of people that came out of Davis and Sac State. They used to share jobs, share their unemployment benefits. They used to do all kinds of weird things. I think, how are they living on this low pay?
I know.
And you wouldn't see any of these kids now doing those things,
No. And then before that, the generation before that would be my group. And we were just, very family oriented, but we didn't do anything else. We helped family.
Right.
But we didn't go out into the community to, help other people.
Well, I knew my sister and them were picketing and doing all that.
Yes.
But they said, where were you? And I said, I had 3 little kids.
Yeah,
I was a mother. I could not go picketing,
But then, now you see, mothers out there with kids. But it was a whole different culture for us, I think. We were between the Issei's and then the young Nisei, Sansei generation. Yeah. So I think we were kind of a little bit of both. It just took us longer to get more active, maybe.
We were influenced by our parents that,
which is
it's a no-no that you do these things.
You don't do things to call attention to yourself. Yeah. So I think we kind of overdid it. Yeah. Because I know when I saw them doing, getting so active, I thought, this is really good, but, I got to stay home and raise my kids.
Exactly.
So,
so our kids didn't end up in jail or anything.
No, But I think, in my in the little ways that I could, I felt good about it, that I
Yeah.
could help Errol when he came and asked me to do stuff. And I thought I could do that.
Yeah.
But I can't go out there and attend all the meetings. And
Well, those are the little untold stories that, you know, you don't pick up until you talk to different people and you think, wow, I didn't know those things happened, you know. So it's
But
really...
I do really credit that generation, and I always talk about Harriet because she's the one I knew the best, because she eventually became my boss. So I got involved in things through her,
Yeah.
like the Asian Pacific, what is AP?
Is that the counseling group?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that started from nothing.
Yeah.
And I remember meeting, what was her name? Jerry Inamoto's wife. What was it?
Oh, Dorothy.
Dorothy. I met her through, because she was working with them.
Oh, she was.
And they had an office in River Park right across campus. So I would go over there sometimes, and I must have done something for them because I was there sometimes.
Wow.
But through Harriet, I got involved in a lot of things too.
Yeah. Well, I always say that I was not one of those. I was on the board for a long time. People think that I was so involved. I said, no, I wasn't, because I had my kids too, you know. And I said I went to the board meetings, and whenever there was a function, I supported those things. But I didn't go every single day and do, you know, any of that. It was it wasn't that kind of volunteering, you know.
Yeah, no, that was me too. And I think if I didn't work at Sac State, I probably wouldn't have gotten as involved as I did in some of these organizations.
Yeah.
But it was mostly through Harriet.
Yeah.
Because we used to hire student assistants through Asian Job Resources. And I think that was Harriet's connection.
Yeah. Well,
And
see,
so I met some of those people.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's interesting because Asian Job Resources, I think June was involved in that at the beginning, and then Mei Lee.
Right.
And then
So,
eventually Mei Lee became the head of it for how
Right.
many years? She did it for a long time.
So I think when I was working with those students, it was Mei Lee was the director.
Yeah. And then now when I think of it, even like my sister's house, that grew out of a lot of the Asian resources kind of stuff too. So
Yeah,
all
the
these
Asian
things that have
Counseling,
happened-
Asian Pacific,
Yeah, yeah.
the counseling group, I think,
Yeah.
APCC or whatever that's called.
There's lots of,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think, so just from a little thing like the JCC, I think all
grassroots
this
kind
happened.
of, so it's
just
really
grew.
amazing, you know. Yeah.
And someone told me, and I don't know because I don't know Sacramento that well, but they said it's the first time that the Chinese and Japanese community worked together so well.
Well, you know what? I think that's true anywhere. You know, like in Seattle or LA, they had the Japanese and they had the Chinese, but there was never an Asian one that came together. I've always been real proud of that.
Yeah, and I think that, in Sacramento, I heard that was the beginning of it. That they all worked, they worked separately before with their own communities, but this was a joint effort, and it grew from that, and look how much it's grown. So, I think that was the beginning of something that turned out to be, I don't know if they knew how big it was going to be.
I know. I don't think anybody ever did, you know. You don't,
No.
at the time you're doing things when you're young, you don't look 50 years down and say, it's going to be this,
Well,
you know.
When you're raising a family, you just think about today.
And, your own little,
Just worry about today.
Yeah. So, thank you for doing this because, like I told you, a lot of people are intimidated by all this. And I don't know if I asked the right questions or anything.
Oh, well,
do you
I'm
have
glad
anything
you're
else?
there. No, I can't think of anything. As I said, I just think that, and I've always, told Harriet that, that group was responsible for, it was just the beginning.
Yeah.
And they worked so hard.
Yeah, they did work hard. Yeah.
And then, they all went to separate
Their own
things.
little
But
careers
the core
afterwards.
group, was there and got it started. And
Yeah.
so whoever came behind them followed through.
Yeah.
So,
And to me, life is, as I'm doing this, going to see different people, then they'll say some little thing, and I say, oh, was that right? And then it all, it's just intertwined and everything.
And especially, I never felt like I was part of the Sacramento town community because you all knew each other, and I only knew you all through Joyce. And then through Harriet getting me involved in so many things. So, I've met a lot of people in the community just because I was involved in those things. That a lot of my placer friends, sometimes they do through JCL or something, but
Yeah. Well, like I say, it's circumstantial, and I think remember, I always knew you at Joyce's friend, and then I find out you know all these other people, and then I have friends in the Bay Area, and remember, then I find out your mother and father used to work for Elsie Ogata and that family.
Yes.
I said, oh my God, that blew my mind too.
Yeah, it's a small world.
It's a small,
it is,
small
and
world.
And I guess within the Asian community, it's gotten smaller.
Yeah, it's gotten really small. Yeah.
So, but you know what? I'm disappointed in the fact that my own kids aren't as involved because they've gone in different directions. They don't live in Sacramento. I wish they had and they would have gotten more involved. Mark used to help with bingo.
Yeah.
But then when he moved away,
yeah,
that was the end of it.
I guess that's the same with my kids too. They're just involved in their own little careers and all that.
But they're not involved with any community.
Yeah, and someday
that I would like
to. When they retire and they get older, maybe they will.
Maybe.
But I guess we've become so integrated.
Yeah, and then my kids are not full Japanese. They're not full Asian. So even more so, I want them to be part of this, because I think I'm pretty proud of what the community did together.
Yeah.
But I wish they could get involved in something, have that satisfaction.
Yeah, I know what you mean, but I don't know what the answer is to that.
Yeah, maybe they have to get older, like you said.
Like yesterday, I sent out emails to all my grandkids, and I said, if you have time, you might be interested in, because they do ask me about, my history and that kind of thing, and I think this is part of our history, So.
Well, it's like last year, my middle son, the one that passed away, he and his family went to Heart Mountain. They did a road trip because of his chemo, he couldn't go out with the pandemic. They couldn't go to restaurants or hotels, so they rented an RV and they did a road trip to take their son to college. And they stopped at Heart Mountain. And that was the first time that my grandkids really, really understood what happened to us, because that's where we were.
Yeah.
And part of the time we were there. But I had spoken to his history class, and he heard my spiel like I do at the museum, and it didn't really sink in until he was actually at Heart Mountain.
That's something. Huh?
And they were so upset at what happened.
Wow.
But until they saw it, it really didn't hit them.
Yeah. Well, this morning I was looking on my phone. It's called JapaneseAmericanPilgrimages.com. Did you know about that site?
For Heart Mountain?
Well, it's for all the different camps.
Oh.
And when I went in there, and I thought, well, this doesn't apply to me. And then I pushed one of those, there's 3 little lines. And then it showed Gila. That's where I was. And I said, what? Wow. And then there's a big museum in Chandler, Arizona. And I said, I'm going to go and I'm going to take all my grandkids.
Yeah.
It looks, there was an online exhibit. It's really well done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like to go back. My kids bought me a smart TV, whatever that is, so I can get on YouTube, and there's a lot of stuff on YouTube on evacuation and internment.
Yeah.
Different things.
For a while I had thought, oh my gosh, I'm getting tired of this. That's all we are hearing, about the evacuation and all. But when I saw that particular thing about my, camp, then and it said there were 16,000 people in my camp. I said, wow, that was a big camp, But I've been to all 10 sites.
Have you? Yeah, that's what I saw.
Yeah.
But they didn't have anything there.
It was nothing. It was just a smokestack. Heart Mountain is that where you were?
Heart Mountain. We were in Jerome. We were in Tule and then Jerome and Heart Mountain.
I've been to all 3. Jerome is in Arkansas, We do it where we'd go, like when we went to Branson, then we'd,
went to
on the
Jerome.
way. And we went to Jerome and Rower.
Yeah.
And it's I should have written a book too, because Joanne Uritani wrote a book.
She did, yeah.
Thought,
and then
wow,
she brought it, she updated it with the second edition.
Yeah. I thought, mine is stuck in boxes someplace, but it's...
Because you'd be another perspective, so it'd be interesting.
Yeah.
Because... you were in Gila. Art wasn't in camp.
No, he was not in camp.
Yeah.
He's another perspective. Yeah. Well, thank you for doing this.
Oh, you're welcome.
And,
thanks for coming all out. You two are just doing a good job.
Oh, no.
No.
Well,
you deserve a lot of credit
Ted
for the
knows what he's
success
doing.
of this.
I don't know what we're doing. We're just getting this
but it's
all down.
hard.
But it's a way to get our history down
And it's
then
the organizing
he
and
can-
coordinating of
he
it that's
can
the hard part.
Store it
so.
someplace, and then someday, if somebody wanted to know about this or that, they could take a look at some of the interviews. Again, all I can do is say thank you.
Well, you're welcome, and I thank you and Ted for doing all this. Big job.